Welcome to another episode of Conversation and Cocktails with your host, me, Lenny B. In this episode, we speak to Freddy Alva. Freddy Alva is a writer, an author, a promoter, and has his own label, War Dance Records. We sat down, had a couple of drinks, and just shot the shit. Good times were had by all, and rolled that fucking footage. Freddy, how you doing?
Great, man.
Good. First off, congratulations for selling out your first pressing of this book.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone to pick one up, like yourself.
No, it's an amazing read. It brings me back to my childhood when New York was basically an open canvas. You know, I mean, you don't really see it as much as you did back then. Especially the train thing died in the late 80s.
Yeah.
You know, which kind of sucks, but it's the MTA. Funny thing is, though, because I take the train early enough in the morning, and occasionally I will walk down to Forest Hill Station, which is the first stop for either the R or the M.
Right.
So the trains come right out of the yard, and there's been many a time they'll have a half a piece on the train.
Right.
They'll reverse the son of a bitch and take it right back to the yard because they don't want it to run the system because it just encourages that behavior.
Exactly,
you know,
there's still people out of town coming in and doing stuff like that. You know, which is that's kind of cool. Sometimes I've seen a couple of times where cars escape that. You see the full piece, but most of the time they take it right back and buff it.
Yeah, you know what it is? If it's on the opposite side, where it's not on that side of the express track,
then
you know they'll miss it. But there's been at least a few different times where I go, look at that! That's fucking great.
It's like a throwback, right?
Yeah, no. Again, it brings you back. It brings you back to that mid '80s, that early '80s thing where, and the lines are so fucking clean, and you're just like, wow, they really spent a lot of time on that. They really did. But yeah, this book right here, I mean, first off, is there going to be a second pressing?
Yes, we are working on the throwing out a couple of ideas, expanded version. There's a chapter that didn't make it into the first pressing.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll include that. I have a literally like a couple thousand photos that didn't make it in there, so I could include any amount of photos and some black book pieces. So we're talking even doing something expanded, keep it in this format, like soft cover, or maybe do a hardcover version. So it all depends, throwing out different ideas.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I told you before, this is like every time, you know, I have a couple of bathroom books. Howie Abrams is the other guy who I bring to the bathroom with me.
Great company, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And I'll just sit there, and I mean, I read this front to back, you know, like within a day or so, just because I was like, oh my god, because you know there was. Years ago, there was the Subway art book, which I do have. I have the
expanded version,
the big
gem.
The coffee table book, which I can't fit in there, so it's living under the couch right now. But occasionally I'll pull that out and I go, "Wow, man, I remember this. You know, this is like when New York was cool. You know, I mean, New York still is cool, but maybe not really.
Depends your point of view, I guess. If you're like a teenager growing up. The other stuff that's cool that we thought was cool back then. So it's just your point of view. And a lot of stuff that we thought was cool back then, in retrospect, might not be as cool now, like with crime, out of control, lawlessness, all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember when I was in high school in 1990, and it was the highest murder rate that year. I think it was like 2,000 plus shootings or killings that one year. And because I used to...
It's amazing. You would think it was the 70s or the 80s would have that high murder, but 1990.
No, 1990. Wow. 1990 was a big fucking year for crime. Yeah. It really was, because I remember I used to... I kind of cut class a lot in high school, and I wasn't drinking or doing drugs or anything at that time. I just... School bored me. I would leave school. I would go to homeroom. That was my thing. I would go to homeroom, because if you show up for homeroom, you get that fucking train pass.
Yes.
You know, so you had to show up for homeroom so you could get your train pass. And then I would go to museums all throughout the city of New York. I've probably been to every museum in New York at least once or twice. Oh, cool. You know, and I would just like educate myself that way. I'd be like, oh, artwork. You know, you go to MoMA, you go to the Met, you go to Natural History. You know, you go to all these other little funky little galleries on the West Side. You know, here I am, a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. You know, like, in some like gallery, people look at me like, are you supposed to be at school? Shut the fuck up, you know, like, you know, and people would, you know, some of my friends would never get. It's like, why do you go to fucking art galleries?
Right.
It's like, well, it's something to look at, and it's fairly interesting to me.
Yeah, it's probably inexpensive, free.
Yeah,
free
a lot of times
to
they
get
were
in.
free, you know. I mean, you know, because we, you know, we both grew up in New York. You know, when did your family immigrate here?
Well, my brother came here in the early '70s. He had joined the army. Then my mom got divorced. I moved here with her in '79. So we moved. Actually, we moved uptown first for a couple of months. I lived up on Cathedral Parkway, which is like 110 Broadway.
All right, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I'm
we
very
just lived for
familiar.
a couple of months, and then we moved to Jackson Heights, where I pretty much grew up. You know, went to junior high school. What? Not in Jackson Heights, but I grew up in that area till lived there till about, I guess, late '80s. And it's funny you mentioned cutting school.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. In high school, like first year, I would cut school was more graffiti related. I made friends with a lot of graffiti guys, and I did some graffiti stuff. We'd go to layups and hang out. But by '85, I was more into the hardcore scene.
Yeah.
So my cutting out consisted more going to like some records that opened up around '86, or going to shows, or just hanging out with friends in the hardcore scene. So within those 4 years, I switched from hanging out graffiti related to more hardcore related. And later on, that's Urban Styles is about. The
Yeah.
graffiti and the hardcore, how they both meshed together. And I guess ultimately the story of the book is the story of myself and a lot of people that I know from both scenes that combine both scenes.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of that meshing going around. I mean, even like, I started going to shows in '91, but you still had a lot of writers.
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
totally, yeah.
You know, you still had guys.
Yeah.
You know, like I was.
You mentioned like the train era had stopped, but then it moved on to all over.
Yeah,
trains. So '90s, there was a lot. As you know, we were just talking about before off camera about St. Smith doing the Brooklyn Bridge. So
yeah,
it just moved on to even more like crazier places than the trains in the '90s.
Yeah, no, I think once the train ended, it became a lot more like rogue, I guess you would say it was. You know, where guys were just bombing during the day. They just
Exactly.
didn't give a fuck. You know, I mean, at the same time, though, the cops really didn't give a fuck either.
Right.
You know, unless you fucking really fucked with the police, they weren't really fucking with you back.
Well, actually, with the whole Giuliani coming into office and the whole broken windows theory,
yes.
the graffiti, the punishment for doing graffiti became a lot more severe. It wasn't just like a community service or a slap on the wrist. You could really, if you start doing more infractions, the penalties could really add up as far as like either paying money or actual jail time. So
That Dinkins era was pretty wild, though.
yeah, it was.
Dinkins
yeah,
era,
yeah.
when Dinkins was mayor, I mean, first off, we had a couple of race riots in Crown Heights.
Right.
But it was a Wild West during that era,
totally,
right?
totally.
At the end of Koch's era into Dinkins era, I just felt like it was like, holy shit, anything goes here.
Yeah.
Times Square was still a fucking dangerous place.
Yeah, definitely.
If you walk from 7th to 8th Avenue or back and forth, like it's like, oh my god, it's like there were tons of characters. You had the 3-card Monty guys.
Right. Bryant Park's still like crazy.
Bryant Park was very crazy back then. You know, it's a little different now. I mean, I love the city. I mean, I'm not going anywhere till I decide to retire and then somewhere else, not here. But while I have work here, I'm staying here.
Yeah.
I'm not going suburban. I'm not being a fucking commuter. Fuck that. I'll slug it out. Gentrification. Speaking of which, because that's something, that's a word people like to use, and they've used it in this neighborhood. I live in Forest Hills, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. And people go, "Oh, Forest Hills is being gentrified." It's like, well, isn't that sort of like misleading? Because usually gentrification, as I always seen it, is people will go to a minority type of neighborhood and start wiping it out.
Right.
You know, those things that made that neighborhood cool, those little fucking mom and pop restaurants.
Yeah, they're all gone.
They're all gone, and then they get filled with some microbrewery or some like really crappy art space. You know, someone from the Midwest comes in and is like, well, mom and dad's paying my rent for the next couple of years, so I better do something with my fucking self.
Right.
And that's where, you know, all of a sudden everyone has 10 roommates. You know, they divide the living room up into fucking 6 different beds or whatever. And, you know, that's kind of like where we're at right now with New York, because you see that happening like Long Island City.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Long Island City, for
gone,
instance.
yeah.
Long Island City was always this industrial wasteland. My mother actually grew up in Long Island City as a kid.
I went to high school in Long Island City, Aviation High School, so right there.
The funny thing, I remember when I was a kid and we would pass, like, we did a lot of shopping in Queens. You know, we'd go to QP's.
Right.
Shout out to QP's. Or Consumers.
Right.
Consumers was another place. I don't remember where it was. Maybe you do, but that was the place you went. Consumers was a place you would basically go through their catalog, write what you wanted on a card, give it to them, and about 5 to 10 minutes later they'd come with all your shit. Like here you go. It wasn't really a shop. It was just kind of a place you filled out a card and said, "I want this," you know, and they'd fucking hand you a stack of merchandise back. But I remember you know, like coming through like aviation, and this is when they used to have all the planes in the yard. You know, and I was like, what the fuck is this place? You know, aviation was technically a tech school.
It is a tech school. You had to take a test to get in, like aptitude tests. I went there because I went to Catholic Junior High School. I didn't want to go to Catholic high school. I didn't want to go to my zone high school, which is Newtown High School in Corona Elmhurst. So I had this crazy idea of trying to do some engineering related stuff. So I decided to go to Aviation High School, and that engineering part, like, I failed miserably. You know, the shop class, 9th grade, you're supposed to build airframe, like the wing of the fuselage of a plane, a mock-up. I couldn't finish it. I have no skills with tools or how to
it's not for
lay out
everybody.
stuff. But the one thing I did come across in Aviation High School was a huge... since kids from all over the city came to aviation, all these graffiti writers from all over the city came to aviation. So I met kids from like Bronx, Brooklyn, that I hadn't encountered, you know, otherwise in my local school. And then later on, when I was a sophomore, when I got into hardcore, same thing. I met all these kids from different places that were into hardcore and punk.
Alvarez.
Alvarez. Alvarez from he's from Queens, actually. Yeah, but I met him at that time. He was a tall metalhead.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I know about Alvarez. Alvarez told me why he got kicked out of aviation. He wound up like clocking somebody with a tool. But I'm not going to incriminate you, Alvarez.
Pretty much, I'm going to say 80-90% of the kids that I went to aviation school, they got kicked out by 10th grade, like Alvarez. And that across the board, graffiti or hardcore kids. I think I'm one of the only ones that graduated. But it was a great time to just meet both those worlds and get introduced to both those worlds. And aviation was great. We had a rivalry with other schools. There was a big Catholic school, St. John's Prep in Astoria, and you know they stood out like a sore thumb. You know, they wore Catholic school uniforms, so it was huge. Always like mass conflicts going on. And years later, I ended up marrying someone who went St. John's Prep. So
figures.
Sorry.
We getting back to Long Island City though, because I just remember my mother grew up, and we used to go see my grandmother over there. She lived in the same apartment she got back in the 30s. Was paying like some rent controlled shit. Yeah. You know, still had the old school enamel stove, the clawfoot tub. Like didn't modernize nothing, and
shower in the living room kind of thing.
Actually, and it was really weird because I just remember like Long Island City was just a wasteland of industrial, peppered in with some residential, and then within the last 10, 15 years, that place has become like a mini Manhattan. Yeah. It's still a ghost town, though. Don't get me wrong, because everyone goes, oh my God, this must be so many people living there. No, the truth is, really, is that people buy these apartments for investments, and then they don't live there. They just sit on them because they're waiting to flip them.
Right.
You know, they're waiting for that market to get super hot and be like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of this right now.
But there are all those new office buildings that have gone up near, Queens Plaza. Like, first the Citibank Tower, and then
the Citibank Tower was the biggest building in Queens.
It was,
and I think it might still be one of the biggest buildings. I'm not really sure, but for like I'd say a good 20 years when that thing went up, it was like, look at this fucking, because Queens was all like 5-story buildings, 10-story buildings, as far as the eye could see. You could go to the Empire State Building and fucking peep out to Queens, and it was this low-level flatland. As far as the eye could see. And it was just amazing to me that now in the over the last 10, 15 years, it has become like...
Explosion.
It is an explosion. It is an explosion, It's insane. I mean, one of our mechanic we go to is over in Long Island City, so we'll drop off the car and we'll take a walk to like Gantry Park,
right?
And we'll walk around and go like, this is just real fucking weird because 10 years ago you wouldn't be able to walk around here this. It'd be dead, and it would be suspect. Is the best way I could probably describe it. It would be just extremely suspect that we're fucking walking around this fucking weird neighborhood. Again, when you put industrial mixed with residential, you get some characters.
Oh yeah, totally.
You get some characters, and I think, unfortunately, New York still has characters. Don't get me wrong. We have characters, but it ain't like back in the 80s when we had characters. We go, look at that motherfucker. Check him out. Because, like I said, by the time the Giuliani era came around, that's when Times Square changed.
Yeah. Right.
That's when Times Square got Disneyfied.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah, zero tolerance, broken windows campaigns. And I actually just did a job about 3 years ago down Times Square. We were doing some welding on the back of a billboard that's at the Marriott Marquis or something like that. And I was there, doing basically working like 16-hour shifts. It was a long fucking shift. And I would just sit there and I would look at, this is when they've paved everything. So now there's no cars going through Times Square. It's a pedestrian mall.
Right.
And you would see these like fugazi, like Disney characters, or badly put together Iron Man or Batman.
Yes.
Or the 3 dozen Statue of Liberties. And you're like, and everyone's like, I was like, what does this have to do with anything? I miss that grimy New York. I mean, it had soul. It had character. You had to watch. You had to have eyes in the back of your head. And I sort of think, that's what people who move here tend to forget. It's like you have it easy. I mean, yeah, you're probably paying like 20 times more rent than I am. But you have it easy.
Yeah, the danger factor.
The danger factor's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still here. I mean, the fucking, for the most part, the precincts do crunch. I personally believe that police precincts crunch numbers to keep the statistics low. About, to keep neighborhoods hot, to keep, like, oh no, New York is fine. There's nothing wrong with New York. It's like
safest city in America. They're touting it now.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know about all that. You could still get, you could still get $1.50 across your fucking cheek if you're not careful. But yeah, I just think that, people come here and they're like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna go eat at Olive Garden in Times Square. It's like, you can eat at Olive Garden anywhere in the United States. Go to a mom and pop fucking shop. Get some real spaghetti, So I want to talk to, how did you get involved with hardcore music?
It goes back to I was talking about before, aviation high school. About 85, I was always pretty open to lots of different types of music, always kept an ear out. And I met these couple of skinhead guys that went to my school, and they turned me on to like Bad Brains, Black Flag, and they had a band. They had a band called Occupied Territory. I was in 10th grade, they were 9th, they're a year below me, but we started hanging out, and they kind of just introduced me to a lot of the hardcore scene, basically.
Yeah.
You see, took my first shows, and they loved the Bad Brains, so first time I went to see the Bad Brains in 86, and right when I came out, and that blew me away. So my favorite Bad Brains record. and just got it was a good time to get into hardcore because if you know the books, the history, New York hardcore started about 80, 81, the whole 87. But by the 84, a lot of stuff a lot of bands broke up. The crossover thing was starting to happen. So about late 85, there was a revival of the straightforward hardcore sound, which bands like Warzone started popping up, Straight Ahead, all these bands. So by 86, there was like a second wave of straightforward hardcore coming up in New York, and I was really lucky to be just getting right at that time period, and just that really like indoctrinated me into the whole New York hardcore scene.
How was the scene back then? I mean, like did you when you first went to your first hardcore show, were you like, this is interesting?
Well, yeah, it was definitely crazy. I mean, I went once again, it was school related. I went with a friend from school, this new wave kid that told me about the shows, and we just blown away. There was crazy stuff going on. I remember the first band I saw was Raw Power from Italy, who was just like really fast, out of control hardcore band, and just blew me away. And just going in the neighborhood we talked about before, the Lower East Side was a totally different world. I had encountered being into graffiti. I had encountered that kind of environment before. Friends took me up to the South Bronx, like in '83, or East New York in '84, and that was like pretty rough. So it wasn't like a culture shock because I've been in that type of environment before, but it was still pretty crazy.
I mean, I'm sure seeing people slam dancing and getting into it, you're like, wow, this is fucking something else.
Yeah. But the cool thing was finding people my age, either from school, from my neighborhood, and we all kind of just went together and just looked out for one another. So it was great. That was the whole lack of a better word, unity kind of thing that made everything really special. As you know, New York being so diverse. People of all types of socioeconomic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, and I encountered people that came like me, that came from like they might have grown up in the hip hop scene, or been into freestyle like you just mentioned, and then they went into hardcore, but they didn't deny those roots. We were still into hip hop, we were still into freestyle, or metalheads, they were still into metal, but now we're into this thing called hardcore.
The funny thing I remember, like when I got into hardcore, like I said, in about '91, and we were all even.
Right.
Once you went to a show, it didn't matter if you were a rich kid, poor kid, you were from this background, that background. It sort of all became where we were just one under the same roof.
Even playing field. Like,
I mean, there were definitely some kids who had a little bit more money and had more style because they can afford the Fred Perry gear, which you went, get the fuck out of here. It's like look at this asshole. He's got $300 Doc Martens on. Like he's got fucking really nice Docs, because I remember the first couple of shows I went to was like at the Marquee, back where the fuck was that, 20th Street I think, and those shows. I mean, this was when CB stopped doing matinees because it got very violent. And the violence carried on for the first couple of years into the 1990s, and it was fucking real violent. I mean, it was like it was a gang mentality, and I remember walking down to the Marquee, and you had to pass under the High Line, which is now High Line Park, and there would always be a bunch of kids. And by the way, it was Minus and Sob and their fucking boys, Rest in peace, fucking Sob. But and they would just pick. They would like look for marks. They'd be like, him.
New Jacks. They're looking for New Jacks.
They're looking for New Jacks. Hey, you got a ticket to get on the show? It's like, yeah, right here. Pow! It's like, oh, he got laid out. It got to the point where we would like go down 19th Street and come back up the other way because after a while I was like, I don't want to run into them anymore. This is getting ugly, And some of those shows in there, I like I said, my first show I went to was that. It was like first hardcore show, real hardcore show, was Sick of It All, Rest in Pieces, Burn, but with KRS-One headline.
Oh yeah, was
the
that,
Embassy International show.
Right, that's a Rory.
Rory
Prevalent show. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was fucking wild.
Yeah.
To say the least, it was just like.
I think that's a show where a certain person we know pulled a gun. Is that the show? I'm not gonna say names.
No, it may have been. It may have been. I know who you're talking about. It may have been that show. It may have been that show. But
rest in peace, whoever that was.
Yeah, it was definitely a violent show, and it scared the fuck out of me, and I wanted to go back next week. You know, it was just like wow. I don't know what the fuck I just witnessed, but I want more. You know, like hardcore to me is like a drug. You know, it's like, and you know, I've stepped out of the scene in and out over the last 10 years because of my job, but it's like a fix. I can't get anywhere else. You know, it's like fuck, I need this, you know? I just need this. It's like, you can't get out of your system. I'm going to be fucking 45 this year, and I'm like, fuck. I was like, I'm still going to shows. I was like, this is crazy. Why? You know? It's like, I don't even do drugs no more, you know? But this is my fix.
Right.
You know? You got involved with ABC No Rio.
Right.
It was you and Brendan, I believe.
Well, the original, the guy that found the space, Mike Bullshit, who he did Bullshit Monthly fanzine like in '85.
Yeah, he was the lead singer for Go.
He was the original singer for SFA. He actually started SFA, and then he brought Brandon to the band, and then Mike left, and then Brandon became the singer. So he's the original SFA singer. And December '89, he put on the first show at ABC No Rio, and just from the beginning, it kind of just started off, some of the things we're talking about, the violence escalating in the 90s. A lot of people wanted to get away from that, even though it might be, exhilarating and exciting. Some people just really turned off by it. They still wanted to stay hardcore punk, but they don't want to deal with gangs or any kind of violent, gang-related violence. So ABC New York became a haven for that from the beginning. But all places, change, different points of view come in and everything changes. But so I was friends with Mike, and he booked shows for about 6 months. And in the summer of 1990, he decided to go on a cross-country bike tour, bicycle, not motorcycle, bicycle tour. And I'd been helping out since then, just hey, whatever needed to be done. A bunch of us, like Gavin, Chaka from Burn to Security. Anyone just would clean up or work the door or whatever. And he just told me, hey, I'm going away on this bike tour in the summer. If I give you the details how to do a show, do you want to continue doing the shows? Like, okay. And I kind of just took over the management, as it were. But it wasn't just me. It was a bunch of, couple dozen people doing everything. My name was on as far as booking, people get in touch with me. So I booked a show at ABC Scenario for about, I'm going to say a year, from summer of 90, well, a little more than a year, maybe 16 months. So, summer of 90 to the end of 91, I booked shows there. And during that time period, I managed to get other people involved, like the squatter rot scene that was happening at the same time. So Neil and Ralphie Boy from Neil from Nausea, Ralphie from Disassociate, they were putting on shows at Squatter Rot. So I asked Neil to come into ABC No Rio and build a sound stage. Well, just build a stage first and do a sound system. So that got more of the squatter scene involved with ABC No Rio. And it just became an alternative to whatever was going on at Coney Island High or Marquee or Wetlands, also another club. So I just thought the more the merrier. It didn't have to be one particular club, one scene. You could have multiple clubs, different bands doing different things, and you could go pick and choose whatever you wanted to be a part of.
I remember, because my thing was, I remember when I started going to shows, and I think I tried to get a show at ABC and just never got a response back. Whatever it was. Being the youth I was at that time, I was like, oh, fuck ABC No Rio. Right. But as an older person now, I understand, because that was technically hardcore's first safe space, I guess you could say it was.
Yeah, I mean,
because the scene was violent at that time. It was extremely violent. You know, the first half of the 90s till about 93, 94 was extremely not pleasant to be in, you know, and I was in bands at the time, and guys would just get mangled at shows just for saying the wrong words to somebody. You know, guy shows up for a show, and it's like, oh, I know so-and-so. It's like, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? You know, it's like, he's trying to get integrated in what we're doing.
On a side note, like we mentioned, Stop and Minus once in a time. I knew this guy from like, you know, since 87, 86.
Yeah.
And, you know, they did some really crazy, stupid stuff. You know?
I know
you
that.
know, unfortunately, it added to that spiral of ever increasing violence. So, but I know those guys. They're always cool with me. You know, they were hilarious.
I had no problem with those guys.
The bands they started, they were great. So it's just like sometimes they had split personalities. They were cool people they knew, but if they didn't know you, you were a newcomer. They could act really adversarial.
It's funny. I remember sometime in the early 2000s. Was at Manitoba's. I was playing in this band, Dominican Day Parade.
Great name, by the way. It's the best name.
It's such a stupid name.
It's the best name.
But we're you know, I had known Minus at that point for at least, you know, a good chunk of time, and I was like, I remember when I first met you. It's like, you punched me right up in the face. He's like, you know, hey, he had this crazy thing he was like talking to me about, and he bought me a drink, and we started laughing about it because he's like, dude, it's like I was an asshole, you know, you know, that's what I did, you know, and I was like, dude, I don't give a fuck, but I was like, I just thought it was funny, I was like, yeah, I remember he was like at some show, and it was like, pow, and like, oh shit, and you know, there's fucking Saab with his long hair and tattoos, fucking like looking to get people, you know, and you know.
But the thing is, I understood that mentality, you know, growing up in Jackson Heights in the early '80s, like early hip hop scene. It was just as violent, you know.
Oh yeah.
You throw the graffiti in the mix, and a lot of guys acted the same way, like in the '90s and this, you know, whatever the wetland scene, whatever. The same mentality I saw, you know, growing up, and I could tell like it was just, you know, it's a phase. You know, people young, a certain age, you come from a certain background, you're gonna act a certain way to either prove yourself to the world. And thing you just mentioned with Minus and looking back on it, oh, you know, it was stupid. And yeah, a lot of people, you know, they were just acting really stupid, doing really stupid stuff that, you know.
When the karate dancing came in, that was that was like that was not fun. You know, I mean, there were plenty of pits I've been in where it's fun. You know, you're having a good time. You look over your board, and he's having a good time. You're all smiling. Someone falls, everyone picks them up, and then it got to spin kicks.
Yeah.
And
I could trace the origin. I'm not gonna name names, but like '88 or so, I remember a couple of good friends who remain nameless. They started doing that.
Were they from Brooklyn?
Queens and the Bronx. That's what I'm gonna say.
I could probably figure this. I could figure this one out. And if we're talking about the twins,
Queens, Bronx, and one guy from Jersey.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
But I could trace like, oh, this is something different. You know, it was like there was slam dancing, there was moshing, pogoing, whatever. But this is something. It was like a new thing, which is kind of cool when it's like an individual. It's just one guy to 200 guys doing that. It was kind of cool. You know, it's expressing himself in a unique way. But then 3 years later, when all the 200 guys are doing the same thing, and it just they're bringing their, you know, martial arts training or the sports training.
Yeah,
it gets a little out of hand.
Yeah, it's like, guy, I'm just trying to get to the fucking bathroom. You know, and there were plenty of times where I had to take a piss at CB's, and I was like, fuck this, I'm going outside and down the corner because I'm never gonna make it through that fucking pit. I'm going to get mangled in like 20 feet.
Yeah.
You know, you knew you were, you know.
And not to sound like an old jaded guy, but...
no, you can sound like an old jaded guy because I'm an old jaded guy.
If I see videos now, like current hardcore bands, and you see like, you know,
crowd killing. That's a new thing now, crowd killing, where someone will just like, it's kind of like a guy just starts wailing on another guy just because he happens to be smaller.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's one dude. There's like 10 of you.
Yeah.
Fuck him up. you know, get him, you know, because I remember when guys would act foolish at shows, and you'd be like, we're taking him down.
Right.
We're gonna get him out of here because he's he's gonna be outside real soon. Watch.
But from like a sociological point of view, it's really fascinating to me. Like, you know, like I said, I was thinking back of the guys that first ones remember doing that to what it is now. It's pretty amazing to see the evolution. Also musically, you throw the music in it. You could say like the beat down, hardcore, you know,
This is Alexa. She's a fucking cunt, by the way. She just goes off for no fucking reason. I know the CIA is listening. Trust me, the CIA wants nothing to do with me.
But I was talking like musically, like the evolution also, like what we consider now like modern hardcore, heavy metal, you know, mosh bars, like the whole song is one long mosh bar. Or
well, there's a lot of bands nowadays. They have all the energy in the world, but there's no song.
Right.
You know, and I've spoken about this with quite a few people. It's like these guys have all the energy in the world, but where's the song? Where's the hook?
Right.
And that's something that Howie Abrams, you know, I've known Howie probably 20 some odd years now, and he always says like, if you could find the hook in a song, you have them.
Right.
You know, and he's right. You know, and the hook could be. It doesn't have to be a fucking. It could be something like he said, like, you know, why am I going insane? You know, fucking like Victim in Pain or something like that.
Yeah.
It could be that fucking stupid and that simple,
Right.
and you go, it's a hook. It gets people drawn in. Now it's just one big mosh part, or there's other bands that they've put out the same, you know, record for the last like 10, 15 years where you go, all right, you know, I could give a fuck less about watching this, you know. It's like.
But I could trace the evolution of that whole one long song mosh bar to like, for example, when the Breakdown demo came out, 87.
Yeah.
That was mind blowing. You know, it was incredible, trend setting. But you know, but if you listen to that Breakdown, there was a fast bar and then the mosh bar.
Yeah.
You know, but then through the years, you see that the whole song becoming just the Breakdown mosh bar. You know. Ad nauseum, repeat it over and over again.
Yeah.
So once again, to sound like a jaded old guy,
Fine.
it's sort of like you know, I don't want to hear it anymore. You know, I love Breakdown. The 10th generation disciples of that sound is like, you know, it's a cutter for me.
Fair enough. You've known like Gavin and Chuck and those guys forever.
Long time.
Burn. I want to talk about Burn for a hot second because to me, Burn was like that next level shit. You know, and I mean, even Absolution was that next level shit too.
Yeah.
Absolution is like, to me, like proto Burn.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, obviously. And I got to give respect to Burn because they came back when they, you know, this recent like run that they've been doing. You know, they recorded a brand new 7-inch. Now they have a full length. Now they're working.
Which is incredible. You know,
incredible.
Yeah.
And to me, if you're going to like, because there's so many bands that will just do like the reunion shows and they'll just do the greatest hits. So they'll play their 12 songs, and you go, but they won't play anything else out. And I've spoken to I've spoken to Gavin, you know, before on this, and he even says like it gets boring. It's like Gavin, you know Gavin. He's an artist. He's a mad scientist. Yeah. He has to create, and whether he creates with Burn or something else or Die 116,
whatever. Yeah.
You know, and
he's got some soul stuff coming out now.
Yeah. I've heard bits and pieces of it. Yeah. It sounds very fucking interesting. Aren't you putting this out?
No, actually, Orlando's doing it. But I am actually talk about it now.
Yeah, sure.
Me and Chuck are doing his Ghost Decibel project.
Oh, very nice.
Which is, you know, 360 degrees from anything Burn or any hardcore stuff. But it's cool. It's really cool. It's more electronic bass, for lack of a better word. So we're gonna work on doing something like that. And Chuck is someone that I've known since, you know, I met him hanging out some records in was 87. We got to be good friends. We did the New Breed compilation.
I want to speaking about the New Breed compilation. I've actually spoken to a couple of dudes that I've been on compilations with, and they always tell me, they're like, if I could go back, I would never do a fucking another compilation again. Because it's the biggest pain in the fucking ass to fucking put together to get everybody.
This was maybe I have a bad memory, but I just remember being like a blast doing it.
Oh, so you had a good experience.
Yeah, it was all our friends. Friends had a new band. I had some fanzine layout experience from doing a fanzine called New Breed. So I like laying stuff out. Chaka was great as he was a great sound for music.
Yeah.
So he's the one that EQ'd everything to double tape deck. So he EQ'd everything on a master tape. We had a blast doing it, and we had a blast compiling everything, and then putting everything together. It was the ultimate DIY thing, the tape, you put the labels on, you record each tape individually in real time, put everything together, and then we go and we sell it, ourselves. It was a blast. It really taught me, I think also Chaka, the power of just doing stuff ourselves, not sitting around, and that we can do stuff. And I think it really inspired him doing that compilation. Well, doing the compilation, you really got to know Gavin. Yeah. And also Alex Napeback was the first Burn bassist, and the drummer.
By the way, do you know what happened to him?
I've been trying I've been trying to find out for the past.
You're not the only one.
Years.
Every once in a while, his name will come up, and for some reason they'll tag me in it, and I'm like, "Do you know?" I'm like,
"I've heard rumors, but I don't want to unless you find something out complete.
Yeah, you don't want to fucking start spreading bullshit.
And I'm in his old neighborhood. Alex Nape. Speaking about different people you met in the scene.
Yeah.
I met Alex Napeback and we were doing a compilation. We were playing in a band called Pressure Release. And we became good friends. He's like, "Oh, come on."
Pressure Release? No shit.
Yeah. He was the bassist in Pressure Release.
Weren't they from Connecticut?
Half of them were Canadian, half of them from the city.
All right.
And so Alex was from the Upper East Side. So one day he told me after Steve, "Hey, you want to come hang out at my house?" Like, sure. I grew up in Jackson Heights, working class neighborhood. We go to his house in the Upper East Side. It was a freaking townhouse. His bedroom, his elevator opened up to his room. And we were like, "Holy shit!"
Someone's got money.
Okay. A lot of different, but Alex was told the coolest guy in the world, and I've been looking forever, find out what happened to him. So Chuck, I got to know Alex, Gavin, through making the comp, and then when the Absolution broke up, he told Gavin, "Hey, I want to get a band going," and Gavin's like, "Yeah, I'll help you out," and he recruited Alex, Alan Cage to play drums, and that's the genesis of Burn. So I think the comp, doing the comp, led to the forming of Burn, I believe. And I'm really incredibly biased, but Burn just, it was just mind blowing.
No, they were outside the box.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that. I was 89 when they first started rehearsing. Me and Chaka, we were gonna do a Burn set. Well, even before they were called Burn, they didn't have a name. They had a couple tentative names, and then Gavin gets a call from. It was late '89. Gavin gets a call from Dan O'Mahony from No for an Answer. Yeah. They were good friends, and Dan's like, "Hey, move out to California. We'll do a band, and Revelation's gonna put it out." Gavin's like, "Okay." So the project with Chaka kind of seemed like it ended. Gavin moves out there, but before it ended, we recorded a couple of songs. Yeah. And he took it to California. The project with Dan didn't work out, but Jordan Cooper from Revelation heard the songs. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna do a 7-inch or whatever band you're doing with Chaka." So that's where Revelation got the dibs on the Burn 7-inch.
So that first Burn EP, the 7-inch, was for me, being a guitar player, and I've told this to Gavin multiple times. It was coming from over here, left field, where it was like, "Dude, you're using another part of your brain that other people don't use." And that's Gavin for you. I've had the fortunate pleasure of jamming with Gavin and Andy and Dan Cav. Right. And actually, Andy Gaida is how I met you. Right. Fucking another insane person, I guess you could say. Andy Gaida, and that's another guy I have to fucking sit down and talk with.
Shout out to Andy.
Yeah, seriously, he's out of his fucking mind.
But the one thing that always like blew me away with Burn, Chaka. You know, we were friends.
Yeah.
And then you tell him, oh, I'm starting a band. So, like, you know, you got to support your friends, whatever. But then, you know, I'm sure it's going to be good. But then he just blew me away. You know, like,
yeah,
oh,
well,
shit.
they were fucking amazing.
He was like, wow, you're really good. You know, you really, like, exceeded my... I'm going to support your friend regardless. But it's incredible. I don't have to know you, and I love what you're doing, you know. So, they just always, like, just blew me away. And I wish they had... recorded a full length back then, but you know we're talking about coming back. You know, just last year they did a full length, and it's amazing as well.
Yeah.
So it's you know nothing, no water under the bridge. They're still incredible. So they're in tour right now. I think Chaka just texted me.
They're in Europe right now.
Like yeah. So they're working on new stuff, and I'm working on new stuff with Chaka. So nothing has changed in the past 27 years. I'm still doing stuff with Chaka and Gavin. They're also part of the book as well. Gavin's in the book, Chaka's in the book.
They've always been an amazing band. If you have an ear for that,
right,
like outside the box, like left field shit, they're just like, oh my god, right. You aspire, you know, you aspire fucking big time to be Burn-ish, I guess. You know. And I mean, and I'm also a huge fan of Die 116.
Oh, of course.
Die 116 was just, it went, Burn was left field. Die 116 was left field.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like, you know, and to this day, Die 116's full length is actually, you know, and I'm going to get fucking probably thumbs down for this. I actually probably like the fucking Die 116 full length better than some of the Burn stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just so
probably
like...
the later Burn stuff.
Yeah.
Not the first evidence.
No, the first fucking... The 7-inch, you know, and here's the funny thing, and I told Gavin this, I actually had a bootleg copy of that 3-song Last Great Sea thing,
Right.
you know, and everyone's like, how the fuck did you get this? Like, I don't know. Fucking, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone. That and the fucking Live at CB's bootleg.
Oh, right.
You know, which got
bootleg in the 7-inch, I think, right?
Yeah, I think Lost and Found did it. Yeah. And it was like, what the fuck? You know, and people were like, how do you have all this fucking shit? I was like, I don't know. You know, I'm a fan, and I just find things.
No, that was his thing. Was also
they were fucking wild. Dude.
I actually did the first that 116 lineup. A couple of guys from Rorschach, a band I put
Rorschach was. I'm gonna have to fucking. I have to fucking talk about Rorschach for a second. Rorschach was just another one of those like, what the fuck am I listening to? Yeah. This is somewhere else. You know, left field, right field, fucking everywhere, bleachers, whatever. It was like, Rorschach was no fucking joke back then.
Yeah, insane. Doing the early ABC Norio shows, they were the first bands to play there, so I got to know them, and I was lucky to put out their 7-inch, the Needle Pack 7-inch, which is the in-between record between Remain Sedate LP and Protestant. And there was just another band, like, you know, growing up, I can honestly say I didn't like metal. I wasn't a metal guy. Past maybe 5 years, I've gotten more into metal. But Rorschach was the one band, like, incredible. They could take metal, you know, riffs, whatever, and put it in a hardcore context, and just blow me away. You know, the last record, Protestant, is incredible.
No, that Rorschach was fucking amazing.
And the guitarist and the drummer went on to the first lineup of Die 116.
Yes.
Was playing that, and then that was like mind blowing. You know, having those guys. That was another amazing band, and also Pride, another Gavin band.
Oh yeah,
you could go on and on with Gavin bands.
Oh yeah, we'll just talk about them all day.
Right.
I want to just talk about War Dance Records. You've put out some fabulous things. You know, you've put out the Absolution.
The last thing,
The last thing they did.
I only waited 27 years to put out an Absolution record.
Yeah, but it's out. That's all. This is another fantastic little record here. While we wait, as well as My Rifle, which all seems to have Andy Guida all over it. I think all these were recorded at Andy's studio, to be honest with you.
Yes, they were. Yep.
You know, and Andy's a fantastic person.
6-3 collection right there.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Why a label?
Getting back to being involved with ABC in Rio '90, when I was putting on shows, I got to be friends with the newer bands cropping up.
Yeah.
And Citizen's Arrest. They were, really amazing bands.
I remember them. Yeah.
I was actually friends. A couple of guys were in the New Breed comp on a previous band, so I knew them from the New Breed comp. And they wanted to do a record, and I was like, saying, "What the hell? I've done a band, I've done a fanzine, I've put on shows. Let me do a label. What the hell?" So I put out their first 7-inch and their LP as well, and then I went on to do about 6 records till '94. Did about 6 releases. Mm-hmm. And then in 2010, when there was people got in touch with me about doing a New Breed compilation reissue, I kicked off the label again in 2010. So since then, I've done like one release a year, and they're all just been same as before, old friends bands, and just keep it just the way it is. It's not money making thing.
It's a passion.
It's not a collectible thing. It's just old friends. And I keep doing the same. I have one release planned this year, and the same thing as an old friend. That's it. That's my Warden's record story.
As far as the New Breed movie goes, what's going on with that?
I literally just met with John Woods, the director, and Orlando Arce, the editor. We're gonna finally. They're gonna finally do a final edit. They're gonna fix a couple things that are wrong with it, and we're gonna do a DVD release of it.
Good.
And John Woods is involved with Nighthawk Cinema in Williamsburg, and they're in the process. Nighthawk is in the process of opening up a movie theater in Park Slope.
Oh, really?
Which is it's gonna be 4 times bigger than the Williamsburg.
Yeah.
So when that opens up in the spring, we're gonna do another New Breed documentary screening there. And the DVD will be ready to go, and also we're going to put it up online for people to watch. That's what's going on with that.
It was, I played one of those shows for the New Breed thing, and it was like wow, I just, that was like a year before I got into the scene, so I missed it.
Right.
But I was like, holy shit, this is like, I did not know this part of history, And speaking of history, Chris Wynn. Chris Wynn always has said, I talked to Chris Wynn.
I did my New Breed fanzine. Chris Wynn was the me and him did New Breed in '88.
and you got to give props to Chris because he's still, he's
a lifer.
Yeah, well, he can't. He doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
He doesn't know any better.
He doesn't drink or smoke.
He has a wife.
So
he has a wife and a kid now, but he's still like. He's like, I don't know any better. I have to be involved.
Yeah, same as when I first met him in '88. He was a College Point kid, really obsessed with music, and he's the same as always. He hasn't changed. Right?
No, and it's great to see that someone in their 40s still has that passion. Right. He says, no, and I've asked him because print fanzines are not really a thing. Although there are some people who still do them.
Yeah, definitely.
There are some people who still do them, but it's not like it was back in the day.
No,
you'll never get that. Everything is digital.
Yeah. I worked at pretty much the world's only fanzine store, See Here, in '91, and you'll never see a place like that again. Just you go in there.
See Here was great.
All fanzines, it was incredible. Yeah, I worked there for
See Here. The thing with See Here, I always felt it was like it had this. You could go there and shop for any fanzine you wanted, plus all these indie books.
Exactly. Yeah.
You had Henry Rollins imprints all over the place. Yeah. Then you had just creating a scene. You had that.
Making a scene. Yeah.
Making a scene. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. Which I have a fucking revised copy of.
Yeah, that's great.
And I always fucking break Tommy Carroll's balls about it. Because like, Tommy, look how young you look. He's like, fuck you. Me and Tommy grew up together. So I could do that to him. I'm one of the few people who could break his balls so he won't punch out. But yeah, again, thank you for doing this. I am so glad that you're going to have a second print of this because unfortunately you can't get it now unless you go to eBay and you want to pay like $80 for it.
Well, I do. The book is officially sold out. The publisher don't have any copies, but I did. I hung on to about 2 boxes of them, And I still want to do a West Coast signing, kind of working out the details now. So still, if I do that, I'll have some books for that. And I'm still doing book-related events. For example, April 21st, I'm doing Urban Styles art show. So it's 17 writers from the book. They're gonna have their canvases for sale and viewing, and have bands playing. It should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to about 3 of those events, and I gotta say, out of all the guys who have the best stories, Smog,
yeah.
Smog, he just starts going.
You should have him up, and he'd be up for an interview.
I'm sure he would.
He's great. You know,
I'm sure he
Smog's
would.
the best,
It would be pretty funny to have him here.
And he's been, his first hardcore show. I don't know if he told you. His first hardcore show was Minor Threat at CB. I'm not
really
CB, Great Gildersleeves in '83. So he's been around a long time, not just New York hardcore, but graffiti as well. So he's like, and he's a riot. He's so funny.
No, he has some fucking stories.
Yeah.
I when you guys did your first event for this book, somewhere downtown in Lower Manhattan, I believe.
Well, the first one was in Brooklyn at the Powerhouse Books at the downtown Brooklyn. Then we did one at Generation.
The Powerhouse one is online, and
the Generation was online too. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I was at that one, and once you got him going, he just didn't stop.
He's the best.
And it was like, oh my god. I was like, I feel like this should be a fucking documentary onto itself.
I felt great because when I did those signings, I picked the right guys to come with me, and it's their show. Let them. They have great stories. I say a couple of things, but let them talk. Because the book's about them, basically.
Yeah,
so,
well,
they were great.
Basically, it seemed like you mostly used like Smog and Jir.
Right.
And
Ezek too.
Ezek's made appearances, but those two guys had probably made the most appearances. Right. It seems like, as like they just always have something new to add.
Yeah. They have great viewpoints on everything, and they're always strong viewpoints, very passionate viewpoints about something. They really thought about something and they express it in a really good way. So they're great. I love it.
No, they were fucking fantastic. The Smog stories from Generation alone about PJ and Cope destroying his house was like, all right, this you can find it on YouTube if you just look up
on YouTube. Yeah,
if you find it on YouTube, it's worth a look because it is fucking hysterical. Yeah. It really is. Freddie, thank you very much for doing this, man.
Hey,
I appreciate
it. Having me in lovely. Can I say where we are? Yes. Lovely Kew Gardens.
No, Far Sales.
Forest Hills. What's Kew Gardens?
Same thing. We're on the border.
Lovely Queens.
It's the same shit.
Lovely Queens.
Same shit. All right, guys. Peace.
Thank you.